Today I'm going to start to give a quick tutorial about how to use Excel for data analysis, particularly for the engineer student. Um, so to start, let's start talk about the Excel interface. So usually when we have the Excel, we open the Excel, that's what we get. And the interface has some tabs that most of the time we will use the home tab and the insert tab for majority of the time we want to use the Excel. There are other tabs that also you can go ahead and look at them for further details. Whenever we open the Excel is basically, if one want to say that it is a you can insert the tabular data in that. So whatever you see here as a sheet, you always can consider it as a table, and it is a label table that each row and column is labeled. So each row has its own name, each column has its own name or label. So if you look at here, when we are talking about the Excel, we have these table format here, and these are the cells we have. So you can see that each of these cells uh, denote one or shows one cells, as you can consider that it shows one cell in a table. As I said that these can be considered as a label table. So each of the cells has its a row, each row name, its no row name as column name. In other words, each cells would be known by its row name and by its column name. So here we'll see that the columns are start to be labeled from A, B, C, D, and it goes just further where you can go there up to the Z, and then you have A, B, A, C, and so on. And here on the rows, do you see that each row will name is labeled or named with 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you go down there, it just keeps increasing. So each of these cells will be named by these two, its column name and its row name, or its column label and its row label. So basically when we have here, this is the column A, row 1, so it's gonna called, as you can see it here, A1, and the next one is the column B, row 1, so it's going to be B1. So if I come here, so it's the column C and row 3, so it's going to be C3, and the same as you can further choose any of those cells, that you will see that it gives you the exact name for that cell. Beside the cell, also we can select a couple of cells together. For example, if I go here, click on the A1 and hold the mouse key down and just move the mouse, it lets me to choose, for example, a couple of for example here cells in the column format, or I can again click on that cells and move my mouse to the right, so it's gonna select a couple of them, or I can just move it anywhere and select the multiple uh, rows and columns. So this is how we can do that. But further, when we want to do a specific types of calculation, sometimes we want to refer to those cells. For example, assume I want to, in some calculation, refers to cell from the A1 to A5, or from the A1 to, for example, E1. So sometimes I want to refer to these 5, or sometimes I want to refer to these 5. If we want to refer to the range of the cells later on, we can use it uh, like this. So we can go ahead and use the column. It's going to be in this format. So if I want to start it here, I will type the starting cells. So here is A1, and then I want to enter the last cells, the finished cells, end cells is going to be A5. So I'll come here, I start from the first cells, and then I put the colon, and when I put the colon, I put the name of the last cell. So here's the A5, so I put the A1 colon A5 and press enter. So it's gonna choose that range for us. In other words, anytime we want to choose a range, we can start from the start cells, colon, and then the end cell. So for example, here if I want to choose from A1 to E1, these 5 cells, I can go here and says, okay, start from the A1 and then the colon and then E1 and then press enter, and it's gonna select that. These types of giving the range of data, these type of using column to specify the range of the data, we can use it for the purpose that later on, if we in data analysis we want to tell example, for example, go ahead and choose these 5 cells and do this specific calculation on that, so we can define those cells by using the range when we want to address them. Besides that, also we can always do some, whenever we insert them, we can go ahead and customize those uh, rows and columns. For example, I can come here, we can select one column or multiple columns, and then if I right click on them, and then we can, for example, format the cell, or we can here check the assign the column is the same here. We can, for the row, we can do that. We can come here and select, we can format the cell, or we can, for example, set the row height here. Also, for example, if we want to insert any row, we can select it again, right click, and we can insert the row. Or the same here, we can come here, select the column, and then insert the column. So it lets us to do that. And it happens often. Sometimes we insert the data here, and then we find that, okay, well, I need to insert the row or insert the column into to whatever table I already have, so I can go ahead and do that. One of the things that for the data analysis particularly we need to do is that we need to sometimes we need to go ahead and specify what type of data we are using. In most cases, Excel tries to pick up automatically what type of data we are using, but sometimes it can't. If we want to do that, is we select the column that we want to specify the data we want, and then right click and click on the format cell. And when the format cell, the windows opens up, one thing is that the first one is going to tell us what type of data we are going to have here, and in most cases it's general, and it means that Excel tries to figure out what type of data you want to use. But sometimes you want to specify that types of data particularly to very specific types. For example, you may want to say, no, all the value I have here are numbers, just numbers, and then you can come here and define how many decimal places you want. For example, here, if I go ahead and say, no, I want to have 4 decimal places, so it's going to make it 4 decimal places here, or I've said, no, I want to have 1 decimal places, or no decimal place. You can define that. One other of them is, for example, for when you're doing the data analysis, we may need to specify some time sorted. We may have a data that's time stamped or date stamped. So we can come here and say, okay, that is the column that I have my dates or time in those columns, and the format of dates or column we have it. Also, the other one that might be helpful for us is the scientific format. Sometimes we are dealing with the very large numbers or very small numbers and want to show them in the very specific format, particularly the scientific format. So we can come here and say, okay, show those numbers a specific format. The rest of them here, you can come here and change some of the styles of what you have, but mostly the numbers are the one I want particularly talk about them. So you can come here and do that. It has some special form of numbers that you can choose it from here, or you can enter the customized data that you are imported here. So say, okay, that is what type of specific format I have. So these are what we need to do. Sometimes we need to, again, I said Excel in most cases try to pick up what type of data we have, but in some cases it may not be able to do that. So this is basically what we have. We are talking about the interface and what we'll do with the data. Then now let's look at some data and see how we can work with the data. So assume I have this table here. So you have 3 column and 1 column, 2 column, 3, and I have some random numbers in there. So, and I want to show you how we can work with it. One of the things that we will use in Excel is the formula that sometimes we want to do some calculation on the data we already have. So to use the formula is always like that. What we will do, we use the equal sign. So I will show you how to do that. Assume I want to add these 3 columns together and see what's the result. So, and I want to have the result shown here. So I click on that cell, the destination cell, and here you can do it on the cell, but most of the time I find it's easier to do it here. Here, just click equal. So, sorry, just hit the equal sign, and when you press the equal sign, the Excel wait for you to enter the formula you want it to calculate. And here I will say that I want to add this column, so I select it, I click on that, plus I want this one, plus I want this one, and then I press enter, and then it's gonna add these 3 for me and tell me how much it's gonna be the value for that column. Now if I need to repeat this process for all the other rows, I can come here, grab when I bring my cursor here, you'll see it becomes the like the plus sign, so I can grab it and bring it down here. So it's gonna do the same thing for each of these rows, similar. So if I, for example, click here, you'll see that it adds these 3 and put it here. So it repeat it for each of the cells. So I put it here, it add these 3, the associated ones, and put it in here. The same if I here assume I want to instead of adding them, I want to multiply these 3 columns to see what's the result. So I can come here again, click in this bar here and press equal, and then say this one times this one times this one, and sorry, times this one, and then press enter, and it's gonna do the calculation again. I can grab that and bring it down, or sometimes if we double click on that, it will fill this automatically. So if I double click it, it does that. Sometimes it doesn't. So if it does it, the easiest way is just, again, as I did it, bring it here, double click it, it does it. If it doesn't do that, so come here, grab it with the mouse and bring it down manually. Now assume another thing I want to do is I want to subtract the column string from the column 1 and get the result, and I will do that this time here. I said you can do it inside the cell or can do it here. So I select the cell, I press equal sign, and then say the column 3 minus column 1, and then press enter, and it's going to do that, and then I double click it to fill out the rest as well. So you will see that it will do the calculation for me. Now, sometimes we may, as you see, when I go from this cell to this cell, we copy it copy the process, and it use the associated cells. For example, if this one, for example here, if we added these 3 columns and we get this one, when we go to the next row, it add the corresponding cells, and then it gets this one. Sometimes we don't want to do that. Sometimes we want, for example, to use a constant or a constant in our calculation. I will show it here. Assume I want to times, I have a constant, assume here is a 10.2, and assume I want to times my first column, the value in the first column, by that constant. So I can come here and say, okay, I select this one and hit here equal, and set the first column, and then times this value here, and then press enter, and tells me, okay, it's a 1 times 10.2, so it's 10.2. Now if I go ahead and grab it to fill out the rest, you'll see I will get 0, 0, 0, and the reason is that if I click here, you'll see it automatically move 1 row down. So when I go to the second row here, it goes 1 row down. If I show this one, see, because it's 2 rows below the original one, and also it brings it 2 rows below that original value. uh, if I had a column here and I wanted to, for example, times this column by the value in this column, that would be great because it will corresponding cell wise. So the first one to the first one, the second one to the second one, the third one to the third one, and so on. But in this case, I want to times every one by this single value. So how to do that? Is that this is how we will do that. So we'll come here, we select these cells again, the destination cell, come here in the formula bar, press equal, and I want to times this and then multiply by this one to this value here. So I will select that, but before doing anything, else, I will press F4. And you will see it change, it put the dollar sign in front of the column and in dollar sign in front of the row label. It means that that dollar sign is that's it says that it's going to be absolute value, absolute column and absolute row. So it says the column is going to be always B12 and the row is going to be always the column is going to be always B and the row is going to be always 12. So if I press that, it's gonna always use this value here. So now if I extend it to fill the rest, if I come here and do that, see it although I go to the second row, but it always use this one. So if I go to the third row again, but it still use this one. So one more time, what I have done, just um, um, select the cell that we want to do the calculation, equal, then I want to times whatever value I have in this column by this constant here. So I will say times, I select this one, I want this one to be absolute, I don't want this one to be changed. I select that, and before doing anything else, I press F4 and it make it absolute, and then I can do the calculation on that. So this is how we enter the formula in Excel. So we can put any equation here that you want to put, a very simple one, but we can put any combination of equation in that formula bar that we want. Now also Excel has some predefined function that we can use them as either as a standalone function, or we can use them inside the formula. So when we want to use, for example, assume some here, if we come here and look at here, we'll see those predefined function that we can use them in formula. So here some of them well-known one are here. So it's the sum, average, max, mean here. So if I come here, I click on this cell, for example, and then I want says okay, I want to add some value here. So if I click on that sum, it's gonna automatically says okay, I'm gonna make a sum. So the sum function is gonna be called. So basically it's a formula, so it's the equal sign, and then we call the sum function, and that sum function wanted to find the sum of everything is in this column. And you see it automatically tried to choose the range, so it choose from the H3 to H8, but we don't want it, we want to go from H3 to H7. So I come here, select on the first one and drag the mouse to select the range I want, or I can manually enter the H3 to column to H7, and then I press enter. So it's going to give me the sum of these values here. Similar to here, if I want, for example, to find the average, I can use the formula and use one of those predefined function that Excel has. So I come here and says, okay, so equal to, and then I can come here and says the average. I can come here and select this one, and then come here and say I want to do the average. It automatically put the sign here for us. And I want said, so it says the average of this cell. No, I want the average of this range. So I just go ahead, select the first one and drag the mouse to get the range that you want to calculate the average, and then press enter. So these are one of the, so again, one more time, if I, for example, do any other one, just select that cells, come here and select whatever function you want, and you can use that function. If you don't see, these are the very also has just these functions for 5 ones, but it has more functions here. If you want, you can come here and you will see the more functions. So some of them recently used is the ones that you will see on the top, but it has lots of different functions that you can come and find. And for example, you can come and choose the maths and trigonometry, so you have all the sine and cosine and any function that you have in maths and trigonometry. Or you can come and for example choose any other formula that you think you might need to calculation. For example, one of the other sets of formula we might find ourselves to use them is statistical data. So you can come here and a statistical function all are here, so you can use them in case that we want them. Also, if we know the name of the function, for example here, we can directly type it here. So here, look at here, if I click on the average, it's gonna fill it for me here and say which one, where do you want to take average, and that's it. Also, I can use it the way as we enter the formula. So I can come here and press equal and then type AVE, and it tells me the predefined function that starts with AVE. So which one do you want? And I said, okay, this is the one I want. This is the average. So I double click on that, and then it says what's the range of what's the range to take average. So this is the range, and then press enter, and it does that. So we can, if we know already, or if there's a function that we use it a lot, instead of coming here and click it here, we can just as I said, press equal sign and then type the name of that function, and we'll fill it for us. Now also, in addition to that, Excel has the sort function here, that you can come here and select any column or row and then sort it. For example, if I want to sort the data in this column, I can come here, select these, and come here and say, okay, I want to sort them from the smallest to largest. So I will click on that, and most of the time you will see the pop-up windows like that, which tells you, do you want also only to sort that column, or do you want the column next to that column be also sorted accordingly to this column. So for example, whatever is going to be the first row is going to bring the is going to sort the column that sits next to that according to that first row. Whatever go to second row, also the neighboring column is going to go to the second row, and so on. So if you want only to sort this one, you said no, just continue with the selection. If you want to also sort the columns next to that based on whatever happened in this column, then you can click on the expand the selection, and then just click the sort, and it will gonna do the sort for you. So we can do that sort also here. So these are basically some of the basic calculation we can do with the formula and with the predefined function that Excel it has. After we one of the measures that after we do manipulating our data and put the data in the format we want, we may find ourselves that we need to present data, and in most cases it's much easier to present data, particularly if you want to give it to the client or to some co-worker or to your boss or someone that you can show the data and discuss the data on the plot. So when we want to do the plotting, is that we need go to that insert tab here, and if it's on the insert tab, the most part that we are talking right now about is this panel here. So this is the chart panel, and that chart panel has all the in most of the types that we want to work with. In most cases, the chart that we want to work with is here under the scatter types, which is going to be either the scatter data or the linear data. That can be, if you want to make a linear plot or want to make a scatter plot, we'll find them here. But it has other type of chart here that you can find them. For example, if you want to make any bar charts, you can find them here, or any other type of charts. If the charts or the plot you're looking at is you can't find it here, you can click on the recommended chart here, and um, if you click on that recommended chart, it will start open that box here. So you have to select the data first, so then click on that recommended chart and it gives you some recommendation about that. And then next to that also you have this all charts, so you can see all the available charts that you want. For example, you want to make a histogram, so you can come here and make it. Want to make a 3D plot, you can come here, plot in 3D, or any other type of plot you want, you can choose it here on that area. The same here, you can click on this here and this arrow here, and also it brings the same. So it also brings out the recommended chart, and also brings it the any available chart. So you can either choose from recommended or choose it from those available one here. So basically this is how you can do that. You can make the available chart, or choose them from any available chart or recommended chart to plot the data. Now let's look at some plotting, that how we will do the plotting. One of the I would say very common type of plots is that if we just put some, we present each data point with one I would say that marker on the plot. So if I want each data set plotted with a single marker, this is mostly what we use, the scatter plot. So assume I want to get a scatter plot from these data. I have X and Y. So I select the data, I will come here on this scatter one. I choose the very first one that says scatter. I choose that. It's going to create a scatter data for me. As you can see, the data is plotted the X versus Y, and it shows here that what's plotted. One thing that you always can do is that if you later want to make any changes, you can come here and select the data, and then come here and make a change in the data you have. So you can come, for example, bring this and say this is what I want to be plotted. So if you don't want to, so you can play with the data that you want to be plotted. Assume I want only these three data set to be plotted. Or I can come click here, and then if I click on the plot itself rather than data, I can move them both together at the same time. So either click on the plot or click on the data, and then it lets you to play with the data set, data range that you have to plot the scatter data in the way that you want. Another type of data is that, so in this case we only plot the data set with the I would say the just markers for each data set. Another one is the linear data, that we use the line to plot the data when we want to do that. So here assume I have some degrees from 0 to 360 degrees, and then I want to calculate them in the radians. So I come here and I put this value here. I use the formula, so I times whatever value I have in angle, times it by pi value, and divided by 180. So I get this value here. So these are the angle and radian, and then from those angle and radian I calculate this sine of those values, the sine of this value I have in radian, and these are the sine of. Now assume I want to plot this angle in the radian with the sine of those values. So I can select these data, so this range, and I go to the insert, and this time I will go ahead and choose that line value. So again, the difference between this one and this, both of them make a line, but this one make a smooth line, and this one just make a straight line between between two data points. So we can, depend on what we want to do, we choose the one that fits our needs. But in our case, this one is better, so I choose that. So it make a linear data for me. As you see here, I have the x data is going to be in the radian, and the y data is going to be the sign of whatever I have. Now assume I have this there, but instead of having this as a sign, I want to have them as in degrees. So I can come here and grab this and just, so first I have selected data, come here and grab this to this degrees column, and then you'll see everything change here to degrees from the radian. The same, if you want to go back to should make it a radian, I can come here, select it, and bring it back here to radian. Another way I can do that is that I can come here and I can select the data. If I right click on that anywhere on the chart, and then click on select the data, and it comes out that we have only one series data here. Click on that, say I want to edit that, and it tells you, okay, this is the x data and this is the y data. So don't worry about what's written here. So assume I want to change the x data to this column here. So click on this arrow, and it tells me, okay, choose the range of the data I want. So I want this range. So I come here, select that range, and then click here, and then it will, and then okay. So it's gonna, now if I click on that, see it's changed the data. The same, we can go ahead and change the y value if we need as well. So just right click here, select data, edit data, and we can choose either x value or y value here, or either the name of the series here. Now assume I have this plot I plotted. I also need, assume I need the cosine data. So what I would do is that I go ahead and use the formula in Excel. So I put the equal sign, and then I type cosine, and that cosine. So Excel has two functions that start with cosine. So one of them is cosine, and one of them cosine hyperbolic. I need the cosine, so I double click on that and set cosine of what you want. Either I can put the number in there, or in this case here, instead of typing a number, I would say I want the cosine of this value here, and then press enter. And then I double click here to fill out the rest. Now, now assume here I already have one sign, and I want to add the next one into that here. So I can come here and select data, and can add the series. So I can add the series, and then it says choose the x values. So I can come here and say, okay, these are the x value I have, select them and click on that, and then it says choose the y value. So I said click, and I choose this range here and select, and then I select OK, and I select OK. Now I have them there, so I can see I have both of them is there. Now the problem is that, okay, I may not know which one is sine, which one is cosine, so I have to go ahead and assign a name to them, so I can specify which one is which. So again, I select that, select the data, and this first series, which I know is was sine data, so I click on that. It says what's the series name, so I can type a name here. I can click on this one, says okay, this is my series name, or I can directly type it there. So it said okay, so it's gonna be sine x, and then I choose this one and click edit. I said okay, this is for the name. I select these cells here and click OK, and then it's gonna be cosine. But still I cannot see what's happening because I assigned the name to them, but I can't see them. So what I can do is that when I click on the chart, come here and select on the design, and then add the chart element here. So I can come here, add the chart element, and I can add anything to the chart, but here I want the legend. So go ahead and add the legend, and then add the legend for me to the chart, so I know which one is sine and which one is the cosine one. So this is how we can do the linear and manipulate the different type of data, added 2 3 or more data to that plot. The next type of plot that we may find ourselves using is the log-log plot. And when we are dealing with log-log plot, basically is when we have the data that are spread in the wide range. Relatively, it may go from the very small values to the very large values. For example, here, if I look at here, I have the x value start from 0.1 and it goes all the way to 75,000. So relatively, I have a very small number here and a very large number in the x direction. The same here in the y direction, I have this value here, and then I will see that those values goes to the very tiny numbers, and so relatively this 0.0005 is very small compared to this one. And so whenever we have the range of the numbers that are spread in the very large range, we most likely we need to do the logarithmic plot. Now I also assume we will do the simple plot. So I choose this data and I go ahead and say I want to make a linear plot. So look at here. If I can make a linear plot, basically I can't see anything. It's just vertical line here, horizontal line in this area, and not much more information about what's happening here. So how we can get it to make it in the log data is that we have to go ahead and if I double click on this chart, this customized panel will be open on the right hand side of that. So again, one more side, if I come here, select the chart, so I double click on the chart, that customizes panel opens, and then depend on where I'm selecting, it's gonna accordingly it's gonna be changed. Now here I would choose the x axis. So if I choose the x axis and then come here and choose the axis option, and then if I move all the way down, it will ask me, do you want it to have it in the logarithmic scale? I would say yes. And as soon as I click on that, see what happens. So you will see that, or suddenly I can see the curve that I could not see it in the regular format. Still, I know that my y value, so in the x excel, I can see what's happening in the x, but I might not be able to grasp everything happen in the y direction because still I have a very large and a small number. So I will come here and choose the y-axis here and also make that logarithmic scale, and then suddenly I can see both changing in the x and y direction. So depending on how we have the data, we might need to have only the logarithmic scale on the x or only logarithmic scale on the y, or may need to have the logarithmic scale on both x and y axis, depending on the type of the data we have. After we create a plot, in most cases we may need to also customize that plot. So let's go back to that signed plot that we made. So again, I said anytime we need to start to customize a plot, we can go ahead and double click on that, and this customization panel opens. So assume here, for example, I want to change that line, its color, or its let's say the thickness, or any other format it has. I can't do all the things here one by one. Before doing that, let's mention this, that the Excel itself has some predefined customization. So if I come here and click on this one, it has some predefined customization. So I can choose any of them, see if it is the one that you want to have. For example, if you look at, say, this is a dark theme I want and that's all I want, so that's okay. So you can click on that and then you're done. Or if, for example, if you don't like the color schemes here, you can come here always and choose another color scheme and change the colors based on that color scheme you have. But if you can't do that or find what you want to do here, again, you can come here and double click on the chart, and this customizer panel open. And now assume I want, for example, to make some changes in that one. So if I click on that one, it starts open and says I can come here, change the color. Assume I want it to be for example green niche, and also I want it to be much thicker, so I can increase its thickness. And also, for example, I want to be, for example, dashed line, so I can come here. Any other things here, I can come here and manipulate those values here. The same here, for example, I can come here and select these axis, assume I want to make changes on that axis. So if I click here, so you will see that we have a couple of them. So you can, when you go all the way through, you will see the axis options are the very next one. So it says the minimum start at 0, the maximum is 400, but I know my minimum is 0 and my for example the maximum is 360, so I will go ahead and put 360 there. So I want to make it from 360, and then here, because it's still on auto, so it's gonna make some adjustment, but I don't want to start from negative, so I'll also make that 0, so it will be reset it to from 0 to 360. And now here I have these units here, and I look at that, so it goes 100, 200, 300. If I'm dealing with the degrees, probably this is not what I want, so I may go ahead and put it, for example, 45 degrees. I said, okay, go ahead for every 45 degrees, and it's going to go ahead every 45 degrees, like that. Or any other changes that I want to make it in x-axis. For example, you see the x-axis here is sitting in the middle because it starts from 0 and 0, but I want it to be done here, so I can select the y-axis and then come here and so I can come here, select this value, and says that instead of going through the 0, I said I go from 1.5, and then if I click anywhere else, so see it bring that x-axis to negative 1.5, so it start from down here. If you want it to be at 0, just go ahead, make it 0, double click and to put it back at 0. Other changes that we might need to make is that we might to add or delete some parts or elements to our graph. So if we still again select the chart, you can come here and select that add to the chart, and we already add the legend to the chart, but there are other things that we may need to add. For example, I need to be add the for example the title to axis. For example, here I can add title to here. Also I can go ahead again to access title to the other one. So here I have the X, Y, I title, and then I can come here and click on that add whatever title I need here. For example, I will say, for example, it's the degree, and here I might go ahead and sign this sine X and cosine X, or any other title I want, I can add here. Here on the title I can add the title here, or if I don't need it I can remove the title at here, remove the title from the chart. Say I don't want any title, or can put it on the title or above the title, any way that you want to make it. The other thing that is the grid line. You may say I want the grid line in both axes. You may say I want a small, or you don't want the grid line at all. So you can come add the grid line or remove the grid line. The same as we did for the legend. So you can put the legend in any location, different location that you want. Also, again, any of these you can select them, and then you have a chance to come here, and if there's the options that you can for example make any changes into the font or the size or where it's located, or any other changes to based on using the for example a particular color here that we want to do that. So this is how we do the customization of the plot, and we do some customization in the plot. After we did the customization, one other thing that we might need to do as after we plot the data, one other thing that we might need to do is this: we might need to find a trend in the data after we plot the data. For example, here, assume I draw this, plot this data. Uh, I go here and plot the scatter data, and then I want to find the equation that represents this data set I have here. In this case, that if we need to do that, what we will do is that we'll select the data and just right click on the data set, and you can here add the trend line. If you click on the add the trend line, it's going to add the equation that represent the data you have. So basically fit the curve to your data and tells you for example what type of data you have. For example, here we know the data we have is the linear, but if it was not, we have the option to choose another type of the data equation from these sets here. So to have that equation, the other things that we may need is that there this set intercept is that basically you tell them where do you want this line be cross the y-axis. So here is if I click on that, it's going to be at 0. It means that I tell that line I want it to, when it reach the y-axis, so basically when the x is 0, the y be 0. If I add any other number here, assume I'm going to add for example 2, it means that when the x is 0, I want the y to become 2, so it's going to hold it there. Or if I said when x is 0, I want the y to be 5, and then it's gonna make it the line, force the line to go through, when it reach the y-axis, goes through the 5. If you don't want it, so you can deselect it, so unselect that, so it will completely ignore it. The other two options down here is to display the equation of that line that we just draw. So you can click on that and it shows us the equation of the line. So it says, okay, this is the line, it fits it through the data. So if I come and click the trend line, it says now look at here. If I come here and set intercept, force it to go to 0, I will see that this part will goes away. So because I basically force it to go to 0. If I unselect it, so it tells what's the intercept. The correct intercept is 1.27. Also, there's another factor that we want to show in most cases is the R square, and basically R square tells us how good this trend line fits to the data. If it's close to 1, it means that it fits well, and if it's close to 0, it means that it fits it didn't fit well. For example, if I go and choose one that doesn't fit the data well, for example, assume you will see it drops, and choose the logarithmic, you will see it drops. But when I choose the linear, it goes to very close to the 1 value. So this is how we will add the trend line to the data. Let's look at another example here. So here that one, the linear. Another one is that again I will create a chart, a scatter chart, and remember, most of the time when we want to add the trend line, we create a scatter chart and then we add the trend line to that. Then I select the data and then add trend line here. Also remember, we can add the trend line from here. Can come here and add the trend line from here as well. So I add the trend line, and by default it add the linear, and if you look at that, so it definitely shows that doesn't do the good job. I can come here and say display the equation and display the R square. So I will see that this line is not going through what I want very clearly, and I know that that is a power. This data I have here has a signature of the power equation, so I can click on that and then it will make it to look like it. And again, as said, after we create the trend line, if we want to make it customize it to make it look different, so we can go ahead and make some changes. So I think I want it to have another color, so here I choose this color, so it's going to be, and then assume I want it to be a solid line instead of the dash line, so I choose it to be dash line. So I can again just select it and go there and make the any changes I want to in its appearance or customize it in the way that I want. So this is how actually also we add the curve to the if you have the scatter data, we can fit the data to the fit the curve to the data. So generally these are what we need to do when we are doing the very basic steps of data analysis in math in Excel.